Okay, so first, of course, check up our motivation. And that in front of us is Guru Chakrasamvara Vajra, all the lineage gurus. And we'll start with the request to the lineage gurus and then do the going for tantric refuge about generating bodhicitta, top of page 3. To Buddha Vajradhara in the blissful form of Heruka and Vajrayogini in union, to the Indian masters Gandhapada, Tilopa, and Naropa, I request you inspire me with the rainfall of transforming energies. To the early masters who established the practice in Tibet, Marpa, Milarepa, Baralosawa, Gompapa, and others, I request you inspire me to the rainfall of inspiring energies. To all of the later masters who accomplished siddhi and transmitted the secret teachings in the unbroken line, I request you inspire me to follow the transforming energies. Inspire me to establish the foundations of the tantric practice by means of the basic Hinayana and Mahayana teachings, and then to accomplish both the yogas of the tantric stages as well as the Mahayana, the great Mahamudra, the great seal of voidness and bliss, may attain the enlightenment for all lifetime. I turn for inspiration to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the Dakas, Dakinis of the secret mantra yoga, the heroes, heroines, inspiring deities, and all bodhisattvas, especially the tantric masters. May I quickly accomplish the state of Heruka Chakrasamvara, become powerful and empowered for the benefit of all living beings when we do it once. So that's fine. Then, sorry, just let me change things a little bit here. Okay, so in the teachings, then, if we go to the sadhana, the practice, sorry, I've got to get the right thing here. Sorry. Okay, so it says I generate the self, Heruka, male and female sexually, and I'm assuming that this practice is actually coming a little bit more from the Kargyu lineage, because it refers to the Milarepa, Naropa, and such, which is fine. I mean, and just the lineages most likely intertwine quite a bit. I mean, for example, Vajrayogini lineage is practice of coming from the Sakya lineage. The Heruka lineage would come down from Naropa through Tilopa and such, and down that way. So there's a variety of different paths, but basically it's practice. Whatever lineage you get it from depends on the guru that you receive it from. So first it starts off with instantly, in an instant I arise as the Heruka, male and female in sexual union. Okay, now there's what's called the taking the three bodies, or taking the three bodies, Beth Bardo rebirth, into the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. Now there's what's called the quickie version, and then there's the more elaborate version. Normally when you go to the voidness and do the 8 visions at the time of death. So when you do the quick version, basically you of course say your prayers, you set up the motivation, you have Heruka Chakrasamvara, all the Daka Dakinis in front of you according to the particular instructions you receive from your teachers and such. You should feel that they absorb into you. So normally it'd be the white at the forehead, red at the throat, and blue at the heart. Is the standard sort of visualization. So you feel all of them dissolve, and there can be quite elaborate instructions on that, but basically it's just you feel that they absorb and they fully support you. And as I explained earlier, you should always think that the guru is, or the gurus that you have, I mean, you can have many of them, are all basically their energy is in this visualization. So when you do that, then you have a strong sense of connection. It's not just sort of Heruka Chakrasamvara somewhere in the universe. No, it's my gurus. So having done that, receive that with Om on Hum, you feel that your body, your speech, and your mind are purified, and then you just let everything dissolve. So the traditional version would be like light comes out from you, touches all the universe, it all evaporates or dissolves into light and absorbs back into you, and then you just sort of go to the syllable hum in your heart, which then goes up into the squiggle and and then disappears into the clear light voidness. Now, I think I described in the previous class that the 8 visions, they're an experience. It's not like that you actually. Well, I mean, for example, the first one, which is called the dissolution of the earth element. I already have it. I mean, my skin is saggy here, and under my chin, bag under my eyes. Well, that's the degeneration of the earth element, and it goes on for 5 or 10 or 20 years prior to you actually dying. But when you get very close to death, then of course it's more extreme. And the thing is, you can't even move your body. Again, all of this comes in the elaborate explanation of the 8 visions at the time of death. My point was to say, though, that the 4 subtler, the 4 subtle visions, white, red, black near attainment, and then clear light, those 4 are basically, although they talk about white element dropping, red element rising, you don't see that. You don't even know that. You're just seeing white, you're just seeing red, and then you have a sort of a black faint. So in regards to this, the thing that's most important is that your mind hangs on the syllable hum, and as it dissolves, you try to follow that down to a very refined level of consciousness. So the quickie version is, okay, you could just say light flashes, and then everything absorbs back into you as Heruka Vajrayogini, or actually, well, yeah, you should be, no, when you finish the long sadhana or short sadhana, you're actually just Heruka. So in this case, you'd just be Heruka because you did the sadhana the previous day. So this day, you're still just Heruka. You do the refuge, you do bodhicitta, you receive Oma home, and then you do the quick dissolution. So basically, flash of light, everything absorbs into you. You then absorb to the syllable hum, and then the hum from the bottom starts going up. And again, you could, if you wanted to be more, detailed about it, sort of have then the 4 subtle visions. Particularly, again, a little bit depends on the teacher that taught you. For the way I was taught is that you have this dot with the squiggle, or the nada with the squiggle, that when you get to the dot, you've just finished to stop breathing. And then you go into the 3 curves, which should be white, red, black, and then with the 3rd curve, which is getting really skinny, it just sort of finally like dissipates and you go to the clear light. Now, strictly speaking, in the teachings, you've gone unconscious in the black vision just for a brief period. And I don't know, I've not read any particular reasons why, but I would just assume it really is sort of the finally letting go of all the 5 major and 5 minor energies in your body. They've all gone into the, going towards the clear light. They've all dissipated. They're no longer functioning. And so when you go to that final little squiggle, like you go, okay, so you have the dot, so you stop breathing, you focus there, and then you go white, red, black, clear light. And so your mind tries to stay on that, as you go through the death experiences, but in this case, with the quickie version, you just try to go to clear light consciousness. And the more you're familiar with it, and again, I've explained before, you try to put yourself at 30,000 feet, in the open space of the sky. And instead of just sort of like I am, at 30,000 feet, like maybe like a mosquito or something like that, you try to say like, okay, I'm non-dual. So you have you, the visionary side of it, and you, the objectives, or you, the subject of the objective side, try to become one, and you are that open space of the sky. You just sort of rest in that, okay? So you're resting in that. And how you arrive at it could take you like 10, 20 seconds, it's the quickie version. But the bottom line is you've gone back to Dharmakaya. And when you go back to Dharmakaya, that's where you're coming from. And I described, I think, in the previous class, it's like you discovered you have a new birth certificate. And the birth certificate isn't from, Europe or from England or something, it's from the Dharmakaya. And so that you really put some consciousness to that I am Dharmakaya, this is where I really come from. And so all of the, the attributes of Dharmakaya are associated with it. And that would be, for example, if you're from England, you have certain benefits of healthcare and pension and I don't know, whatever else they might offer to you. Or if you're from Canada, we have the same thing, or from Scandinavia, you have these certain benefits. So those are sort of you could say, well, you'd say intrinsic, but they're part of that particular country's, birth certificate. So Dharmakaya, you have the same thing. I have that identification from Dharmakaya. Now, this without form, it's a state of consciousness. In this case, of course, it's knowing voidness, or that nothing is independently self-existent, but no forms are arising. So it's just open space, the sky, and bliss. And it's sort of funny that although we, on a regular mundane level, are always trying to relate bliss with voidness, when you arrive at that level of consciousness, it's innately blissful. So it's not like you even have to go and think about it. But the point is, because you started to identify bliss is emptiness and emptiness is bliss, or empty of self-existence, or everything is interdependent, open, empty of self-existence, that it makes it more easy for you to get that identification with Dharmakaya, bliss, voidness, open space, the sky, all of those things. Okay, so you resting in that. Then you become, well, in this particular sadhana, you'd most likely become a hum syllable. If it was Vajragini, you become a red bomb, but in this case, it would be a blue syllable. Or you become the little nada, It depends on a little bit the details of the particular lineage you receive. But let's say, for example, most times it's the little nada. Okay, it's, you know, bluish colored, or you could have it, well, bluish colored, has its own radiance and such, and you rest that. And so you're still at 30,000 feet in the space of the sky, but you're this little dot with a little tail. It's like a little seaman, okay, sort of a way to look at it. And you rest in that. And that's your Sambhogakaya, that's your astral body. And then you say, okay, well, I'm not very beneficial for sentient beings, so you allow then the full mandala, the full place to arise. And again, last week, I think I talked about it too, that, you know, make it a, like you're suddenly in Bodh-Gaya, or, you know, I mean, I wouldn't say you're Bodhana Stupa in Kathmandu because it's really dirty, but you try to be in some beautiful park, it's a pure land, and you are the full Heruka in union with Vajragini. You include a location. Now, that's where, if you can actually go to some places that are holy. Now, I have heard that, for example, in Tibet, there's some places which are just mind-boggling. And I mean, you guys are young, maybe you can go to Tibet at some point in the future. There's some valleys which are very special for Padmasambhava. I have one Tibetan Lama friend of mine who, you know, basically when the Chinese invaded, he was like, I think, you know, 14 years old or something. So he ran out of Tibet and such. And he only managed to go back, I guess, you know, maybe 20 years ago. And he said he was just so impressed with like these natural locations of unbelievable energy. Like he was just like, wow, I mean, this place is just so holy. You know, I mean, he talked about some valleys and things like that. So when you do become the full Heruka Vajragini, you know, if you have had the good fortune to be in some holy place, then try to just sort of say I'm there, but it's really open, expansive. It's not just sort of cluttered with buildings and things. But because you have an association in your memory of a holy place, that actually becomes a blessing to your consciousness, rather than just sort of saying, you know, I'm in the middle of, you know, some park, you know, what park? I don't know, just a park. You know, it doesn't have much flavor to it. So try to make it have flavor. So that's the first section of the sadhana, where it says, I instantly arise in male, female, and sexual union. Then there is a longer version of this, which is called Blessing of the Vajra and the Bell. The Vajra is method, the bell is wisdom, the two together are the nature of ultimate bodhicitta. And so the traditional version of that is that you would take your Vajra, and I don't have one with me right now, but you could say the Vajra is method, and the Vajra goes in front of your heart. The bell is wisdom, so it'd be a little bit to above your left hip, you know, like the position of Vajrasattva without consort, so to speak. And that'd be the posture you assume. So the Vajra, and in the Yamantaka Tantra, you'd circle the, like as you say, the Vajra is method. You start circling the Vajra to the right direct or to clockwise. But with Heruka, say Vajra is method, and you circle it slightly to the left direction, anti-clockwise. The bell is wisdom, the two are the nature of ultimate bodhicitta. Now, in the longer sadhana, again, you don't have it here, but you'd then say, Om Sarva Tathagata Siddhi Vajra Samaya Tishta Ishta Stam Dharmadhyani Hi Hum Bezoa. And that's where, like you say, I have the Vajra commitment, the city of all the Buddhas, and that's my holding the Vajra. That's the blessing of the Vajra, and Om Vajra Om Ganda Hum, or Om Vajra Ganda Hum. Okay, that's actually, there's the shorter version of it. Okay, and it actually says in your thing, left hip while reciting. Om Vajra Ganda Hum. So that's the short version of it. The one I was giving is a longer version. Om Vajra Ganda Hum. So you bless the Vajra and the bell, which means I have method, technique, and I have wisdom, bliss. Okay. I delight Vajrasattva and all others. Again, that's in the longer version. It's the same line. In the shorter version, you just have those two lines. Okay, and then you hold the Vajra and recite, whom, banishing the Vajra, liberates all living beings from the confusion. Joyful I hold the Vajra, engage in Dharma activities of liberation. Ho, 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 ho. So actually, that's a different translation than one I use, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. So actually, this is almost the long version. Okay, the only thing it didn't have was it didn't have the long mantra for blessing the Vajra. So that was Om Sarva Tathagata Siddhi Vajra Samaya Tisha Eshta Stam, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's the Vajra. You don't say it. You say Om Vajra Ganda Hum. Om Vajra, Vajra Ganda Hum. That's blessing Vajra Bell. Again, you're still holding them. Then when it says Hum, I banishing the Vajra, it's that you have to think of like, if you've ever been done Tai Chi, I mean, you could say yoga, but Tai Chi is much more appropriate in the sense of like, I mean, if you're standing and you rise up your hands and you come back down and then you move, like this. I mean, those things. You want to think of like when you banish the Vajra, it's no different than Tai Chi movements. Consciousness and the movement of your body are totally one. Or consciousness, conscious energy, and the movement of your body are totally one. So again, you're circling the Vajra again counterclockwise because it's Heruka Tantra. So banish. So in the one I have, it's moving the Vajra. I liberate all beings from confusion. So you have to think of like, just as if I was doing sort of Tai Chi, the very movement of my body brings sentient beings out of confusion. So it's like it's a real affirmation of your very being is of nature benefit. So I liberate living beings from confusion. Joyful I shall hold the Vajra, engage in Dharma activities. Hum, 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 ho, ho, ho. And that means integration of body, speech, and mind, and also Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Dharmakaya. I don't have the full commentary on that right handy, but the thing is basically I am fully integrated. Hum, 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 ho, ho, ho. Okay, then actually in the longer version of this, it would be Om Vajra Ganda, Om Sarva Tathagata, God, I can't remember off the top of the thing, but the actual prayer goes, all phenomena are vibrating, totally vibrating, completely vibrating. This is the pure land of all of the Buddhas, and this I hold this, Om Vajra Dhammaranita Taranita Sambaranita Sabha Buddha Kesha Brakalini Prashna Paramita Nada Sabha Vajra Safa Shandashani Ho 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 Soha. Now that's the long version. You don't have it here, but I'm talking about it because it is interesting. What you're actually saying is, all phenomena are vibrating, completely vibrating, totally vibrating. This is the nature of reality. This is the pure land of the Buddhas, etc. So that's what's being said in the longer version of this, and I can send it to you at a later date. And what you try to get the sense of is that all phenomena, if you even take the Vaivasika and the Sautrantika philosophies, which I don't know if you're into philosophies, but those are the first two basic philosophies of Buddhist Dharma. The physical universe is nothing but atoms in their philosophy. And that we know that now, that it is all just atoms of different protons and electrons and neutrons and blah, blah, blah. And that forms different elements that we have, whether it's metal or dirt or whatever, water, all these things. And so that philosophy is actually what you're saying in that mantra. All phenomena are vibrating, totally vibrating, completely vibrating. This is the pure land. This is the pure nature of all reality. Okay, so you're just sort of saying, I'm living in this vibrant universe. So the blessing of the Vajra and Bell, which we're at in this sadhana that you gave me, is really, really important. It establishes the whole foundation of your Dharma practice. So I have Vajra commitment. I have the Vajra commitment, my method. I have the technique, which is the bliss and the voidness, okay, or the wisdom, which is the bliss and the voidness. Then the movements of my body is what brings sentient beings to liberation. So you really have this sense of identification with being that I am totally bodhicitta. Then if you did have the longer sadhana, you ring the bell and you completely say, this is the bell. The sound of the bell penetrates all phenomena and goes to all directions and all sides. Just like that, reality is penetrating all phenomena. So for example, if you're in one room and 3 rooms over is the, you're whatever, the thing is, when you ring the bell, you can hear it all the way through all the walls. So you could say the sound of the bell penetrated all the walls. Well, when you have the understanding of the nature of reality, it penetrates all phenomena. So the ringing of the bell and the recitation of that mantra just says, hey, I'm in a vibrantly dynamic universe. Everything is vibrating. This wisdom penetrates all phenomena. And you can make that universal, that universally all phenomena are just a big vibration. You know, and we do know that from modern science now, that basically phenomena have a particular vibration that sets up a particular color scheme, that sets up the way that you see particular aspects. And then, of course, when you really try to find where are the atoms and molecules and all of those things, they completely disappear because there's just what is it they call a potentiality of where they should have been. So that's quantum mechanics and stuff. We're talking about Buddhism. So, hey, they're not far apart, which is actually really cool. Okay, so now you've established the ground. You manifest yourself out of the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, which is clear light, to this being a little nada in space vibrating, to then finally manifesting the full aspect of yourself as Vajrayogini, or sorry, Heruka Vajrayogini, sorry. Okay, so you've got that full manifestation, but you've got yourself in a pure land, a park, or something like that. So you've got a location. You're not just sort of out of nowhere, okay? And you really try to feel this is a holy place. So you rest in that. Then you bless the Vajra and the bell, which is saying, I have technique and I have voidness. I have bliss and voidness, okay? So you have those two, okay? And then with the recitation of the last mantra, then you, of course, really have this very dynamic universe, which you're living in. So that's the whole of the blessing of the Vajra and bell, sort of in a more extensive presentation. So now you've established sort of the ground. Now within that, you're going to do blessing of the inner offering. Now, the inner offering, I want to give you an example of that. And the example is this, that basically, if you had a mirror in front of you, you're sitting cross-legged in front of your mirror, okay? And so the mirror is reflecting you, okay? When it says, you know, out of the voidness comes the wind mandala, which is a half of a disc, like a half of a circle, things like that. So if you think about, you're looking in the mirror, well, what you're going to see is your two knees. And you know, of course, that in the, you know, if you're looking in the mirror image, that it goes around to the back. So that's your half circle. And of course, the front part that cuts it off is from knee to knee. Okay, so that's the reflection in the mirror. That's the wind mandala. Then on top of that, when you're sitting nice and straight, you have the triangular fire mandala. The point of the fire mandala is towards your navel, and the two back parts of the, because it's a triangle, are where the back of your two hip bones, above your buttocks. So that in the mirror, you have the triangular fire mandala, which is equal to the area of your abdomen. Then you have three heads, the one in the front and the two in the back, which would be just underneath your shoulder blades, so to speak. They hold the skull cup. There's the tripod of three. Then on top of that, then you have the skull cup, this sort of big, large skull cup, which should be at the level of your heart. Then inside of that, you generate the 5 nectars and the 5 meats. That represents your 5 skandhas and the 4 elements and such like that. Okay, so so what you're doing is you're actually in the mirror image of you sitting there in your meditation posture. You're creating the basis of your generation of tummo, and then opening up the central channel, and the cooking of the 5 meats and 5 nectars, all of that. That's sort of symbolic. Okay, and then above that comes, well, in the Heruka Tantra comes the Katvanga. It drops down and swings 3 times counterclockwise and dissolves into it, turns it into the color of Mercury, and then, et cetera, as the Sadhana says. But all of that is you. So when you do your practice, I mean, it's really good if you've memorized this. Then you don't sit there and sort of have to be reading something and you don't have any visualization, but rather, I mean, I can't do it in English, but I mean it'd be Om Prisha Vijitana or Om Gandhare Om Piam Suashuda Sabranama Sabajirom, Tumanita Gira, Tamang Ale Ramle Lon, Rale Me, Ale Migo Gebo Sumidendo, Ale Dobayan, Jinga Jeban under Shanga, Duzinga. I mean, that's the short version. But the point being is that you can just go into your meditation. Now, maybe you don't have to say it as fast as I just did, But if you have it memorized, then you go, okay, in front of me is peering the inner offering, but it's no different than me being a mirror, and I'm sitting in front of the mirror, and it's reflecting the parts of my body which need to have the movement. So my thighs, my buttocks, my genitals, and all of those, that's where that's the energy, boom. The abdomen's the fire. Okay, that's your digestive ability, but that's also where you open up your central channel. That's your whole practice of tumo. So you do that. Then on top of that, the three heads hold up the skull cup. The skull cup then is white on the outside, red on the inside, which represents bliss and voidness, or voidness and bliss, depends on, again, the commentary. So all phenomena, the five aggregates that you have and the five fluids, basically are all held by bliss and voidness, but they're all going to get cooked. Your five aggregates are going to be cooked. Your form, your feeling, your thoughts, your perceptions, your consciousness, all going to get cooked. It's going to get cooked by the power of your psychic heat. Like when you do tumo meditation and you do open your central channel a little bit, and you go inside of it, then various phenomena happen and such like that. But you are actually pulling your energies inside of your central channel, and then you can really have these transformations. And of course, if you practice very well, you can pull all five major and five minor winds inside the central channel. Then you will get the vision of white, red, and black, and then finally clear light and such. So you have the example clear light and the real clear light, and the example clear body, or the impure illusory body and the pure illusory body. I mean, all those things, that comes in completion stage. But here, right in the sadhana, you're already doing something that's preparing you for that. So the inner offering, it is our holy water for Buddhism. It's our sacred water, or whatever you want to call it. But it really represents your practice of transformation, your practice of transforming your five mundane aggregates into the five Buddha wisdoms, and then being able to really bless and benefit everybody. So when you do this practice, and having those sorts of understandings are really important. Now, so you start all this though with the two mantras. So let me go back to the sadhana. Sorry there. I have people running in and running out, slamming doors. Forgive me for that, but that's just they're being inconsiderate. Okay. Om Gandaroi Hum Hum Pe. So you are Heruka Vajrayogini. Okay, from the sum syllable hum in your heart, and you could have from her heart too. Maybe it could be the bum syllable. That then comes lots of wrathful dakinis. Okay, Gandarohis. They're wrathful dakinis. They have a cleaver and a skull cup. They go to all of the 10 directions, and they eliminate all that can interfere. Now, normally you would, if you had an inner offering, you would have it to one side. At this point, you would open it. Now, you don't sprinkle at this point because you haven't blessed it for this day, but you open your inner offering. So I don't know, what I always give everybody is, if you've ever been to a hotel and you give these little jars of jam, like a little glass jar with a little lid. And sometimes if you go to certain department stores, like actually in Walmart, I don't know if you have them in where you live, but Walmart has a little package of like 5 of these jars or something like that, which has marmalade, raspberry jam, strawberry jam, things like that. Okay. Well, those are great for your inner offering, because basically it's small, it's under your 100 milligrams that you're allowed if you go through an airplane thing. And when you seal them, they're sealed. I mean, I've had mine for like 15 years, never leaks. And every day I open it and shut it up and take a little bit of inner offering. So anyway, in the sadhana, you would open your inner offering. And I'm just suggesting these little jars are really good, and maybe I'll try to show one the next time I have a class. Okay, now, the next thing, actually, you're going to Nepal. You should go to the monasteries, and if you could get an audience with the Rinpoche, ask for a Dutsi Rebul. Now, these are not Mani Rebuls or other things. They're the pill for the inner offering. Now, the best one actually would be coming from the Sakyapa lineage. This, because they seem to really hold the most of the Heruka Vajrayogini Tantras. Although I'm sure the Kargyupa lineage has them too, but the Sakya lineage would be one of the best. Galupa monasteries would be a good second one. But you definitely ask not for just a you say, can I have a Dutsi Rebul? And they'll think, oh, okay, I'm going to give them a Mani pill. you know, and the Mani pills, they make these huge jars of these tiny little pills, and they have, you know, they have like, you know, 10,000 of them in this great big jar. And then they have a string that goes from that jar, goes through all the monks. Maybe they have 100 or 200 monks there. They're all holding this string. And they do this for a week, and they all recite Om Mani Padme Hum. Now, what happens at nighttime is 2 or 3 monks have to stay up all night, keep reciting Om Mani Padme Hum. And then in the daytime, all the monks come back and they do all the prayers, and then they're doing the mantras. And those become Mani rebels. And they're very blessed. They're very special. You know, a lot of human energy, a lot of, you know, blessed energy in them. But that's not an inner offering pill. Inner offering pills are this. If, and they're very hard to get, really. To be really honest, unless you have a good connection, you might not get them. But depends. So what they are is, for example, maybe way back when, and I just make it up, like, okay, so Naropa had a shirt, okay? And so when at some point maybe he threw it away, well, one of his students would have grabbed it because it was blessed by the, you know, the energy of Naropa's body. And he brought that to Nepal. And so then they would grind it up into a little powder of dust and stuff like that. And then they'd mix that up with the Tibetan pills. And so a Dutsi Rebel pill is normally about the size of the end of your baby finger. And that pill then has some of Naropa's shirt in it. But then, of course, as time passes, then the Pabinkpa brothers, they basically had their stuff and things. So the thing is, then there'd be some piece of clothing from him, or some of his pants, or a robe he wore. It is something that was personally on his body. And so you get that, and they again grind that into powder, and they mix it with these pills. And so now you have Naropa, the Pumping brothers, and then you have the Sakyapa masters. Depends on who's giving you the pill as to what things they might have. For example, if you had a pill from the Kargyupa, it might have a little bit of Marpa, like some, you know, one of the shoes of Marpa. They ground it into powder, and they mixed it with it, you know, with the purified dirt, and made it into the little medicine pills mixed with herbs too. Or then something from Milarepa, something from Gompopa, something from you know, Dual Kensir and Poche, or I mean, all these different things. So you have these pills, and they literally have a little bit of these lamas, something that they wore in their body. Okay. Now, I always joke and I say, I mean, because, you know, maybe you guys aren't overly Christian, but for example, I'm in Mexico. I said, what would you do if you had something that had a little bit that had been with Jesus Christ? You know, they're like, wow. I mean, it's not maybe, it really was something that came from the body of, you know, the clothes he wore, the robe or something of Jesus Christ. That's exactly what we have in our medicine, these Dutsi Rebel pills. And so therefore, inner offering pill. And so these are really unbelievable. So what you do is, when you're in Nepal, it's very hard to get them in the West. I mean, I have some, and I tell you, it's hard to get them. Way back in the 1970s when I lived in India, it was pretty easy because there's a lot of lamas, and Buddhism wasn't overly popular and stuff, so it was easy. Nowadays, you know, you really have to look for a good lama. And if the pills are really teeny, I'm sorry, they're most likely going to be Dutsi Mani pills. They have to be at least a little bit big. That's normally the size for them, something about that big. Then, so what you do is you go around to 2 or 3 lamas and you ask for them for all of it. So you get as many as you can, okay? And then what you do is you get a bottle of whiskey or tequila or rum, whatever you particularly want, vodka, it doesn't really matter. And you put the pill in that bottle, the big bottle. It has, you know, 26 ounces or whatever it is, okay? And then you take your inner offering, and every time it goes dry, you fill it back up a little bit from that big bottle. And if you have a group of Sangha members that are around you, then you can fill all of their bottles. So in our Dharma Center, we have one Dutsi Rebel that came from Trichung Rinpoche, which is very holy. That's in the bottle of it's actually tequila. And that bottle has been refilled several times, but it always has the same relic pill in the side. And then why we use alcohol, although, you know, in the Gelupa tradition, sometimes they will say black tea. The problem with black tea is if you don't use it enough, it's going to get mold. And then it's very hard to think, oh, this is holy, holy, blessed water, you know, with black tea. So what you do is you use alcohol. We're lay people, so it's not a big problem, okay? And even if you have 5 precepts, this is nectar. This isn't alcohol. So you have your big bottle, and then you refill your little itty-bitty little glass thing that you have, you know, like I said, the little one that was a marmalade things or something like that. And you can find, I mean, there's maybe other things you could use, but you need something you can seal. Anyway, so that's where you get your relic pill. And then and again, it's called a relic pill. It has relics in it. Okay. And of the lineage you want. So because you're in the Heruka lineage, generally I would say Sakya lineage, but Gelupa will have it and Karkupas will have it too, depending on the particular, what their lineage was. Because there's Drikung Kargu and Karma Kargu and all these different lineages. So all of them have their own sort of lineage of gurus that came down to that particular one you're sitting in front of. Okay, anyway, so you get the relic pill. Put it in a big bottle when you get back to United States or back to England, because you can't take that in an airplane and stuff, but keep your pills. When you're back in a place where you're not going to go through customs and immigration and they're going to take away your bottle, then you can put it in a bottle there back in Ireland or whatever. Okay, and then you fill your little bottle whenever it gets empty. So at this point, though, we just opened it. Okay, we didn't sprinkle it or anything yet. Okay, so Om Gandaroi Hum Hum Pei, and you feel that any little negative energies that might have been around your inner offering completely get blown away. They all run away because of the little wrathful dakinis, the Kandarohis, go out and they cleared them all away, and they all come back in your heart. Now, you may be familiar, you do mudras when you do offerings, and it's called the lotus mudra. So clicking your fingers with your fingers pointing outwards because you're sending them out. You do a lotus roll, which I use the example, if you're holding a balloon, right hand's up, left hand's down, you go one, hand goes in front of the balloon, you push the balloon away, and you roll the hands over. So it'd be like Om Heruka Chakrasamvara Sabare Ware Aragam Praticha Hum, so like that. So anyway, but you're not doing mudras at this particular point, but you would feel that the Kandarois go out from your heart and then they come back. Now, why? Because it helps you open your central channel. It's opening up your heart chakra, feeling you're sending energy out, pulling it back in, sending energy out, pulling it back in. And this particularly applies when you're doing the 8 offerings. But in this case, you're just doing Gandaroi Hum Hum Pei. You feel little Gandaroi Dakinis flip out. They go and clear away all negativity, especially around your inner offering, and they all come back into your heart. So obviously you have to do the mantra a little bit slowly. You can't just go Gandaroi Hum Pei. This thing, Gandaroi Hum Hum Pei. So Gandaroi Hum Hum Pei. And you can have them come back instantly. Om Sabhawa Shuddha Sarva Dharma Sabhawa Shuddho Hum. And so that's all the universe is pure and so am I. Okay. And Om Sabhawa, nature, Shuddha, pure, Sarva Dharma, all phenomena, Sabhawa Shuddho Hum, the nature of pure I. So all the phenomena are pure and so am I. So I think all the universe is pure and so am I. Okay. Om Sabhawa Shuddho Sarva Dharma Sabhawa Shuddho Hum. So that's the voidness mantra. So that's the second sort of purification. The first one is eliminating interferences. The second one is the purification of things being independently self-existent. Everything becomes emptiness. Okay, but you have forms appearing. That's a very important thing. Now, because you do have you as Heruka Vajrayogini in the Pure Land, the park, the beautiful place that it is. And you can have Dakinis flittering around you and stuff as much as your imagination wants to include that. Then what you're actually saying is my inner offering becomes void. It's not everything, well, it says everything, but I mean, you understand everything is empty of self-existence. But in this case, particularly, it's your inner offering becomes empty of self-existence. From the state of emptiness, Yam comes a blue shaped wind mandala, marked by victory banners, on top of which from Ram comes a red triangular, a red three-cornered fire mandala blazing with fire. On top of that rise the 3 Oms, Oma, Hom, which come the 3 moist human heads forming a tripod. From that all comes a white skull cup outside and red inside. From within the skull cup and knees comes Om, comes the feces marked with Om. So there's your 5 aggregates. So that's where, at this point, when you're generating that with the recitation of your practice, you're thinking of in front of you, you're having the inner offering, but you relate it like you're looking in a mirror, and the thing that's appearing back is first the half moon of the half disc of energy, your thighs and genitals, the fire mandala, which is the level of your stomach, the 3 heads, which are one would be sort of, I guess, your breastbone and below your 2 shoulder blades, and then on top of that, and again, the level of the heart sitting down into those 3 are then the skull cup, which is going to be your 5 meats and 5 or 5 nectars and 5 meats. But in this case, you understand that's your 5 aggregates and elements and such. Okay. And then, okay, so then you generate them, according to the sadhana, it says there, and then, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the wind blows, the fire blazes, the heat, the fire melts the substances together with their syllables. These transform into the orange-colored liquid, the color rising of the rising sun. Above that, from a hum transforms a white upside-down kadvanga, which is the nature of white bodhicitta. It falls into the skull cup. It melts and cools the substances and transforms into the color of mercury. Above these are the santric vowels. Okay, so it depends on, again, the sadhana. Sometimes you feel from the hum syllable in your heart, light strikes the wind moves, the fire blazes, and the substance in the skull cup melt and boil. Okay, or you could just have that the energy starts to move in the wind mandala. That creates the fire, like a bellows, creates the fire to start burning stronger, and the things inside the skull cup start to melt and boil. Okay, that's your tumo. Okay, so that's why, as I said earlier, if you have it memorized, I mean, it could be, tumbang ale ramle lom ramle me ale mi go gebo sumi dendu ale doba yang jinga jeba shanga duchenga de dagi dendu. Okay, that's the Yamataka version, but anyway, same diff. Okay, so then you generate those. And that then becomes your 5 aggregates, which are the 5 nectars and the 5 meats. It depends. There's different commentaries on that. Definitely, so there's the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perceptions, thoughts, consciousness. And then sometimes it's the 4 elements and space, and sometimes it's other things. So it depends on in the commentaries you have. Different lineage gurus would have different commentaries, and again, you have quite a few commentaries, so maybe you can check on that. But the point is that, sorry, I just closed it by mistake. You feel that they're your 5 aggregates now, and then the wind blows, the fire blazes, some things sky to melt and boil. Okay, then comes the kadvanga upside down. Now the kadvanga has lots of symbolism. It basically, the kadvanga represents your central channel. The 3 heads on it, which are fleshy, decomposing, and bone, on the upper part of the thing, represent the 3 visions of white, red, and black. Okay, then on top of that, there's a vase, and then there's the 3 banners. I mean, again, I don't have the details right now in front of me to sort of give you the commentary, but it represents your process of becoming enlightened and opening your central channel and having all of the visions and arriving at clear light. That's what the kadvanga represents. So it's upside down, it is white, and it falls in circles counterclockwise. 3 times it normally says, okay? And that it says cools the substances, transforms them the color of mercury. Now, what's really intriguing is that if you took Western alchemy, they always talk about mercury, the alchemical substance and stuff, and it can turn things to gold. And so, I mean, I'm not into this too much, but Carl Jung, he's a Jungian psychologist, was really into Western alchemy and stuff like that, which again, it's very complicated, and I wouldn't really, I mean, we have our own alchemical system, which is this, so we don't need to study that stuff. But it is interesting that both traditions have mercury. Now, and of course, for them, mercury turns things into gold, which is supposed to be an analogy of becoming enlightened. And so, of course, some people took it literally that the alchemical nectar elixir could turn mundane phenomena into gold. But again, it was understood to be as an analogy. So coming back to the sadhana, though, that you then have you have now taken your 5 aggregates and elements and such, and you've turned them into a nectar, and it's the color of mercury. Okay, then you're going to further consecrate it. Above these, the scantric vowels and consonants, and then it's I, U, Ri, Li, E, O, Ma, Ka, won't read it all. But anyway, the thing is, there's your A, I, U, Ri, Li, O, A. Is then gets you to the consonant or the vowels, and then ka 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 na 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 ta 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 pa 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 ma ya is the syllables. And these completely transform into white Om, red Om, blue Hum. Now again, in the Vajrayogini Sadhana, you don't have to recite all of those syllables, but you have them in 3 rows. And again, depends on the commentary. There's always these little differences. The syllables become Om, the consonants become Ah, and then the mantra of interdependence, Om Ye Dharma Hetru Parva Hetru Desham, like that becomes the Hum. That's one way. Another way is that these are the vowels and consonants, vowels and consonants, vowels and consonants become Om, Ah, Hum. Again, that's going to be in a particular commentary that you would receive according to the lineage that you received. And again, I'm just at this point we're just anyway. Okay, so that become Om, Ah, Hum, standing one above the other. From these, light rays radiate and draw the nectar of the exalted wisdom from the seed syllables of the hearts of all the heroes, heroines, and powerful yoginis who abide in the 10 directions. This dissolves into those 3 letters which melt in stages and develop into the skull cup. Om, Ah, Hum, Om, Ah, Hum, Om, Ah, Hum. Now, again, there are different commentaries. Some of them have Om, Ah, Hum. Some of them have Hum, Ah, Om. Okay. Now, for me, I've always done it Om, Ah, Hum. Because if we come back to that mirror image, Om, Ah, Hum. Okay, so if you were doing it, if you're looking at the mirror, the reflection, which is this the inner offering, then you know the wind moves. That means your genital energy and everything got activated. You started to get heat in your stomach. The meat and substances all melted. Then the Kadvanga appears, which would be related to your central channel. Circles counterclockwise, it becomes the color of mercury. And then you have the syllables, okay, no, Om, I, E, U, ka, 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 like that. You could have the 3 strings, they're like vowels and syllables, vowels and syllables, vowels and syllables, or vowels, syllables, and the mantra of interdependence. It really doesn't matter. Point. So they have them, they become Om, Ah, Hum in that order. Now, sometimes they reverse that, as I said. They have Hum at the top and Om at the right above the substances. But the way I think of it is, and this comes from actually Multradharma Vajra, in his commentary, he says Om is at the top and Hum is just above the mercury fluid, because that relates to Om, Ah, Hum. And generally you would say, I mean, again, in another sadhana, Hum, all faults of color and odor are cleansed. Ah becomes nectar. Om becomes expansive and inexhaustible. That's the more traditional one that's said in many of the sadhanas of Anuttara Yoga. In this case, Hum purifies all the faults of color, odor, and potentiality. That's really the purification of your mind. Okay, so that melts, goes counterclockwise again, and melts into the mercury. Ah drops down again from the heat of the boiling substances, although in the Sadhana says cool. I never saw that before, but anyway, from the boiling substances, the Ah then starts to get hot, melts and falls and goes circles counterclockwise 3 times and dissolves into it. And that becomes nectar. And then the Om, which is the highest up, was the last to get the heat. It gets hot, melts, falls down and circles counterclockwise 3 times. Again, it's your imagination. You know, let's not get overly obsessive about what one tradition says and another tradition says. You're looking for the experience. Now, take a commentary that really works for you and stick with that commentary. That's the most important, because you need faith in what you're doing. But the bottom line would be is that it say, okay, again, it's a mirror reflection of me, but in the aspect of being the inner offering. So the Kadvanga went in, did its thing, and then Om, Ah, Hum, and then the Hum goes in, faults of all faults of color, odor, and potential are cleansed. Ah, it becomes a vast ocean of nectar. Om, it increases and becomes inexhaustible. And then you Om, Ah, Hum, Om, Ah, Hum, Om, Ah, Hum. Now, when you do Om, Ah, Hum, and this is really good, is you feel you take the problems of the day, the week, or the month, and you put it in the inner offering. And that's really, really important. Why? Because so often we identify with our problems. And I can speak for my own self. I mean, you know, I suddenly remember something I did that was bad or hurt somebody or something, and I feel, oh, that's so sad. You know, I should have done that. Okay, that's good to feel regret. That's one of the 4 opponent powers. But what you really want to get is you want to get perspective on it, in the sense that if you have perspective on it, you can purify it, you can work it through. It's not like You are not innately your anger. You are not innately your attachments or your covetousness or your clingingness or whatever. They are just delusions that basically pollute you, but they are not your real nature. So when you do Om Hom, you take a problem of the day and you put it in your inner offering. What's that mean? It means you're putting it into your bodhicitta, into your transformation of your 5 aggregates. You're giving yourself perspective on the delusion. So rather than identifying with the delusion, you're giving yourself perspective. Oh, that delusion can be purified. It's not my nature. It's just a fancy word in English, avidius, temporary delusion. Okay, so because of a certain perspective I had, a certain sense of egotism I had, I created this particular set of karma. It had its factors that created it, So putting it into my inner offering gives me perspective. The inner offering represents my transformation of the 5 aggregates, which is my process of going to enlightenment, which would be bodhicitta. May I become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. And also then it gives you the ability to sort of look at your delusion and say, as much as I have this delusion, other people have this delusion. I have empathy for them, but I put it into the inner offering. I put it into my Dharma practice, my practice of psychic heat and such. So therefore, really, it's going to be transformed. So Om Hom, and this, if you do this sadhana every day, you always should think, okay, this morning I woke up and I was in a really pissy mood and I swore at my partner and told him, well, fuck off and die, whatever, that goes in my inner offering. Or whatever, whatever happens to be the issue, or I have a problem with the tax department, or I'm having a problem with money, put it in your inner offering, give it context. It's like, lacking money isn't the context of my life. It's just sort of my karma due to my lack of being generous or something like that. But the point anyway, so you put all your problems with the Om Hom into the inner offering. And then you say Om Hom, Om Hom, Om Hom. Okay, and then you're ready to do the next section, which is at this point, then we're going to stop with this, the commentary. But I want to open it up to questions and thoughts and sharings and stuff like that. So that concludes the 3 things. The quick version of generating yourself as a deity, blessing of the Vajra and the bell, and then the inner offering. Okay, so those are the 3 things we covered today. So first off, just any questions?
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah, actually, first question would be, when we start the sadhana, is it okay to just start with the request to the lineage, lineage prayer, and the tantric refuge and bodhicitta, or is it necessary to do the standard refuge bodhicitta always upfront?
Your choice. Most sadhanas would just start with the tantric refuge. I mean, normally they start with, in the space before me appears Heruka Chakrasamvara, Vajrayogini, and all of the lineage. Then you say, I go for refuge, or do whatever prayer you're going to say. No, so that's fine. Yeah, you can abbreviate it a little bit. Just, if you have a sadhana that you like, then do what it says. Depends again if you took a commitment to say a particular sadhana. I have a variety of lineages of the Heruka Chakrasamvara. I received it from Lama Zopa in 2019 in France, and he has us do a specific practice of Heruka Chakrasamvara. And he says you cannot do, you can't do this with the 3 purifications of Heruka Chakrasamvara. No, I don't have a commitment to do the 3 purifications, so I'm doing his sadhana, and I'm doing it every day because he made the commitment. So if you don't have a commitment, you have the luxury of sort of chopping and changing stuff. If you did take a commitment with a particular sadhana, you should stick with whatever the briefest version was. Now you can expand that, but you really can't make it smaller because you made a commitment for one particular sadhana, okay? Now the other thing you could do is go to your guru, right, and say, hey, I want to change my commitment to do this. And if they say yes, then it's acceptable. But then you do need to get permission for things. And that's for the integrity of your commitment, okay? That's really quite important. Okay, so yes, you could just start off with, in the space before me, Heruka Chakrasamvara, and then do Tantric Refuge and Bodhicitta, yes.
Brilliant.
And I would have a question about the inner offering. I was wondering in general, what's the purpose of doing it? Whether it's like a symbolic opening towards the process that is going to happen within us, as you suggested, the fire of Tumo transforming the skandhas, or is also, does it work also on our symbolic level to open up or facilitate these processes?
Yes to both, because I would say most of your practice is that you're really not a tantric yogini yet. You're an aspiring tantric yogini, but you haven't got all your ducks in a row. You haven't got everything properly organized. So the inner offering has a huge symbolic meaning for you. You are transforming your 5 aggregates into the 5 Buddha wisdoms, and all of the phenomena of your mundane existence is going into that inner offering and being worked on. So like I said at the very end, the inner offering is bodhicitta. It's your path to enlightenment. That inner offering represents your path to enlightenment, the transformation of your 5 aggregates. And then to give you in context, the issues of the day go in there and get worked on. They get put in perspective of my bodhicitta, my being a tantric yogi, yogini, things like that. So on one side, it absolutely has, it reminds you of what the heck it is that we're doing in Buddhism with our tantric practice. The second thing is, it is sort of priming you for if you did get around to doing completion stage practice. This is opening up your central channel, because it's giving you that mirror image of your thigh energy in your thighs, the fire in your stomach, and then the opening of your heart chakra. So that's the way to understand it. But it's important. And the thing is, if you became a fairly powerful yogini, your inner offering, like that little jar that you have, which has the substances in it, it becomes powerful. You can do miraculous stuff with it. You could heal people if you're really, really powerful. You know, I mean, that's the thing is, it is actually something, you're focusing your energy on an actual physical thing, the nectar in your inner offering container, and that will become very powerful as you become powerful.
Wow. Thank you very much.
So
And
it's
also,
your holy water. It's a simple version.
amazing. And I just I will ask if I understand also clearly the purpose of putting also my own experience in the defeats and failures from my day, because I also try to understand it through the lens of the psychotherapist, because I see some parallel in that. So it's also like introducing self-compassion into all of that, giving a context to I'm on the journey, so I'm aspiring bodhisattva. So all this learning is becoming also my offering, because my ultimate goal is to become a bodhisattva, to do it for the benefit of all, and I'm gathering some knowledge and wisdom along the way. But also right now, the bodhicitta also expresses towards myself by offering myself self-compassion.
That would be true. Yeah, I mean, you
Okay.
could say, you're having compassion to your delusions. You're bringing them into enlightenment.
Yeah.
It's like if you took your anger and you put it in the in a washing tub and you washed it and cleaned it. I mean, that's the thing. So your inner offering is the washing tub, and so you take your delusion of the day and you put it in and you wash it. And then we talked about this in the previous classes, is that if you can deal successfully with your anger in a very clear way, you can deal with other people's anger in a very clear way. And it is helping others become enlightened, helping yourself become enlightened. So that's inner offering is huge. I mean, for me, it symbolizes the total practice of transformation and evolution and such. It's all that. So coming back to your original question, symbolically, it's very meaningful for you because it gives you context about what you're doing to yourself. And then on a physiological side, it is actually, you are generating a little bit of energy in your pelvic floor and stuff, and you are generating a little bit of fire in your stomach, and you are moving a little bit your heart chakra, having it bubble and having all the knots in the heart chakra sort of open up and things like that. So physiologically, it also has a benefit.
Wow, thank you very much.
I would have one short question on
Sure.
Okay. If we have a little time and we do the sadhana, would it be okay to do the outer and inner offerings without the consecration?
They say that you always should bless your offerings with inner offering. Why? Because if not, they're going to be contaminated. And, I mean, it might be a bit, I wouldn't say dogmatic, but the thing is, the idea behind it is that your whole practice is a practice of transformation. And this is your, holy water, the inner offering. So the thing is, you sprinkle it on everything and it makes it pure. I mean, if you have a good understanding, your understanding is what's doing the purification, but you're using a substance to help you to actualize that. So your inner offering is one of the first practices you should try to do. It's the first thing you do in any sadhana, whether it's Yamantaka or Vajrayogini or whatever. They all have blessing of the inner offering because it represents your path to enlightenment. And as I just described, it is symbolic and it is physiological. So that's why you do the inner offering. Now, you could, if you blessed it yesterday, you could sort of say, well, it's blessed from yesterday, so I'm going to just jump into the further sections of my sadhana, which is okay, but then you're going to start doing that more and more, and then you're going to not really remember all the details of the inner offering. So, it's don't be lazy, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Lama Jampa.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you like working with your feelings a lot, and that's good, and we discussed that. But in the long run, imagery does play a big role, and so don't just think of just feelings are the most important. Putting an image to a feeling can give it a lot more personification. So, for example, like you feel that you're in the center, like let's say in some sadhanas, you're in the center of the mandala, you're very secure, and around that then there's spinning swords and arrows and fire and such like that. Okay, so you might just sort of say, okay, the emotion of that is I'm very secure, I'm completely self-confident. But as time passes, it would be good to then create, I am in a perfectly square palace and such. And then outside of that, there are these, flames and swords and things like that. And so how you say, maybe we can't perceive it, but they said, for example, when Kalu Rinpoche, who did 13 years of retreat, they said, if you started to get close to his retreat hut, you had the vision of fire burning in front of you. That's what you would sort of have. And it was because you were coming to the edge of his mandala, and he actually visualized that. So you were picking up on his thing. I heard that about Kalu Rinpoche, and he was very powerful. I mean, wow, if you talk about energy and consciousness, I mean, he was magnificent. But so I'm just sharing with you because it was a question you asked me about 3 or 4 weeks ago. That yes, initially just working with your feelings is great, but as time passes, don't be shy to start actually adding imagery to it because it does play a role. And it affects, I mean, you could say, you would sit there, no expression on your face, and I'm really angry. Or you can start showing an angry face and everybody goes and backs off. It's just an image, so, I mean, I'm using that as an example. I'm not saying please be angry, but I'm just saying is that, that we body language gives a message, and you need a body to make that body language. And then emotions, when they start to affect your facial expressions, they're giving a message. So there is something between an emotion and an image related to it. So all I'm sharing with you is as time passes, don't be shy to start including imagery in your feelings. Okay.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Good. Okay. So we're actually an hour and 15 minutes. That's good. Okay. So we'll do dedication prayers, and let me just pull up the sadhana there. I guess at the end of the sadhana.
And dedication is
okay, dedication on page 19. I have it on the PDF.
Yep.
Okay, so again, just for the hour and whatever we participated in the class, for my good intentions, my desire to become more enlightened and offer more enlightened relationships, I dedicate all of that. Through the positive energy of this practice, may I quickly become enlightened in the state of the wheel of great supreme bliss, and thus may I help bring all beings without exception to the very state of enlightenment. May the precious and extreme bodhicitta if not yet aroused, now aroused. And may it already have been some be purest bodhicitta, may it grow from higher to higher. Okay, so muy bien, that's very good.
Thank you.
So, just a second.